That's right. We're an hour early. Bloom, you know the reason
That's
why.
right. The early bird gets the Pat Fryermuth. It's Pat.
Young MC backwards, as MC Young used to say. Early bird gets the worm. Late bird gets the girly with the $2 perm.
Why isn't
You got a team, here's a word to the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to football, guys.
Football. I'm living in a fantasy. Football. Got everybody mad at me. Football. Cause every game I had to win. Football. I gotta be a champion. Football. I'm living in a fantasy.
We are here for you, Bloom. Is that right? It's week 13. We could
week
wake
13.
up and mess around, and here you go at week 13.
Yeah, it's nitty gritty. I think everybody's starting to feel that adrenaline of must-win games, decisions that you will either celebrate or rue for the rest of your days.
Right.
And I mean, in some ways, getting to this point in the season reminds me of the excitement and adrenaline that comes with fantasy football. It also reminds you how senseless fantasy football can be at times. But hey, when you win because Josh Dobbs threw 4 interceptions, just like I did last night, that it feels good. I don't know.
What do we feel here? Totally should have told you off air. Move your camera down to the top of the fish picture. Otherwise, it looks like I'm the big bully, and then Sigmund's the little bully.
I'm a little guy. See, this is what you're missing if you're not coming to the YouTube show. It's the great production values,
Yeah, that's right. Great production values in the Monday injury rounds. It is by Adam Hutchison. It is available at footballguys.com. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is concussion, projecting week 14 return. So we'll put a pin in that. Let's get to the quarterbacks, the upgrades, downgrades, and waiver wire report. It is available at footballguys.com. It is written by Sigmund Bloom. And, well, oh boy, we got to look at who you're talking about bringing up. 10 to 20% for Jordan Love, for Russell Wilson, and for Matthew Stafford this week, Bloom.
Yeah. Jordan Love's interesting. And I'll say, hey, I'm the fool. I mean, in some ways, getting to listen to this show and read all my stuff at Football Guys, you see the ups and downs, right, of a season. And there was a point, Cease, that we said, it doesn't look like Jordan Love's the answer. I mean, whatever goes on with the Packers, this is an unsuccessful season. Where are they headed? Jordan Love's not the answer. Now, Jordan Love's coming off of 2 good games in a row, and the Packers are in the playoff hunt. And maybe he can help you in the fantasy playoffs. Maybe not this week against Kansas City, but you can see that he's riffing with those young receivers. And even without Aaron Jones, who was supposed to be the centerpiece of the offense, there's something going on here. So I think he can at least help you as a committee quarterback, and we're going to see more quarterback injuries. And you look at your backup quarterback. If it's not better than Jordan Love, go strong to the hole here. Russell Wilson. See if you can comment a little bit on Russell Wilson. What you're seeing is he's adding some as a runner, even if he's not doing a lot as a passer. The defense, Vance Joseph, like you said, he's on his way to a head coaching job. The defense is carrying the team, but I'm looking ahead at this stretch of Houston, the Chargers, and Detroit, and I'm thinking, well, Russ, we're going to have to see what you can do, and we're going to have to see what you can do for fantasy. And maybe it might be a little bit ugly, but it also will probably be somewhat productive along the way. So maybe he has more value, say, for this week in the matchup against Houston than Jordan Love does. 6 teams on bye, you might be looking to replace Josh Allen. You might be looking to replace Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson. If you haven't been carrying a backup quarterback, Russell Wilson could do that for you. And so could Matthew Stafford, who finally went off. He's going to face a tough Cleveland defense this week, but Myles Garrett is banged up. So Matthew Stafford, who did it last week, 4 touchdowns last week, none to Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua. So that shows you how well he was playing last week, or what he's relying on. He's spraying the ball around. Tutu Atwell was the leading receiver. So Matthew Stafford has some appeal. Maybe he's going to come around. And I want to stress again, even if you look at your roster and you think, I don't need this quarterback, you might need them down the line, or one of your playoff rivals might, and be very dismayed to see them on your bench. So these 3 guys should be rostered no matter how short the benches are.
Yeah, it's always about jock blocking when we get to this time of year on the verge of the fantasy postseason. On the verge of the regular postseason, Kenny Pickett, 1 to 3%. Nick Mullins, 1 to 3%. Yeah, Kevin O'Connell said he thought about benching him. Bailey Zappi, Malik Cunningham, PJ
Yeah.
Walker. There we go for our
Yeah.
0 to 1%.
Yeah, and with Kenny Pickett, again, is it just that simple? Over 400 yards, Kenny Pickett, total yards for the offense. Kenny Pickett's best game passing as far as yardage of the season because Matt Canada's out. Is it just that simple? And they just need to finish the drives with more touchdowns. So we'll see this week against an Arizona defense that really, hey, that's the defense that Matthew Stafford threw for 4 touchdowns against last week. Nick Mullins. Cease, remember when Nick Mullins was Kyle Shanahan's quarterback just for a little bit, tiny little bit?
Yep.
Yeah, his yards per attempt was astounding. So now this isn't a Kyle Shanahan offense, but it is an offense that's going to get back Justin Jefferson after the bye. Certainly in 2 quarterback superflex leagues, that has some appeal. New England's quarterback situation doesn't have any appeal unless Malik Cunningham gets a chance. And again, I want to point out that Bill O'Brien, after praising Cunningham, when asked, hey, could he get a shot to start? He said, coordinators make recommendations, coaches make decisions. Maybe Bill Belichick's decision could be a little different after they lost to the Giants last week. We'll see. Cunningham has that dual threat running ability, and maybe they thought he wasn't ready earlier in the season, but, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who wasn't necessarily a world beater before he got knocked out of the game against Denver, still was better than the first time we saw him. Maybe Malik Cunningham has improved enough in practices, has made the coaches feel like, hey, we can give him a chance because it can't be worse than Bailey Zappi, although Bailey Zappi will probably be the starter. If it's not Cunningham, it certainly can't be Mac Jones. They can't go back to Mac Jones again, right? Not at this point. And with PJ Walker, we're just waiting to see about Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Every quarterback has value in 2 quarterback super flex leagues. That's one of the reasons they're more fun.
Yeah, they are more fun, and we're here to have more fun with you. By the way, on Nick Mullins, this says a lot about the former executives. There was a time when the Broncos wanted to hand him the keys. They were like dismayed they couldn't get Nick Mullins. Oh, we missed out on Nick Mullins.
Wow. See, if only one day it will all be revealed, the things that most people would reject and say, that's impossible, very possible. The ineptitude of NFL front offices and coaches makes everything possible.
Yes, everything is possible. That's what Kevin Garnett said. Anything is possible. Your running back position needs some help. We're looking at banged up running backs, including, Travis Etienne. Check out the Monday injury rounds. Adam Hutchinson, footballguys.com. Etienne chest injury does project a week 13 return. So let's put a pin in it and let's discuss. Let's talk about these running backs, including up at the top, Elijah Mitchell, 20 to 40%. And then Samaje Perine, 20 to 40%. Let's talk about Rico Dowdle, that spin move. Let's call him circle button now, 15 to 30%. So we got 3 here at the top to discuss.
Yeah, and we're a couple of things going on here. One is that even though there are 6 teams on bye this week, so we're not completely through the bye week gauntlet, it is definitely time to get those backup running backs on your bench. And again, I want to go over those factors you're looking at, the quality of the backup running back, the quality of the situation, whether we have clarity that the backup is the sole backup that would inherit most of the work if the starter went down, and what's the likelihood maybe that they might get a shot. So Elijah Mitchell has to top this list, even though he himself has trouble staying on the field when he gets a big workload because of the quality of this running game, because Christian McCaffrey, he looks fine. He did have a little injury earlier this year, and I think it's just that simple. Samaje Perine doesn't quite fall into injury upside backup, but he might not need to have value. Actually, very quietly, he has had consistent value in PPR leagues over the last few weeks. Cecil has been telling us that, hey, the team trusts him, right? You might argue, and Cecil, I'll hand it back to you for this, that in a game-deciding situation, that Perine is absolutely the back they're going to go to. And you might argue that with Houston, Chargers, maybe the Chargers offense isn't what it used to be, and Detroit coming up, that those are games they're going to have to score points. They're not going to be able to have an opportunistic defense and run the ball a lot and play it very safe to win those games. And that may be more, you're playing from behind. If they're trailing, who's the running back on the field?
It's
probably
Samaje Perine
it's Samaje
all the
Perine.
time. Yep.
Yeah. So there's an argument to put Samaje Perine above Mitchell here, but the difference is that in no scenario is Samaje Perine a league winner. Now, if Christian McCaffrey goes down, Elijah Mitchell does have that upside. So if you need a running back for this week with 6 teams on bye, or you're looking at your number 3 or 4 running back and you're not feeling great about them, then Perine should be above Mitchell. But if you're flush at running back with 3 or 4 good options, then you want Mitchell's upside. Dowdle gets into the backup running back, should be on your bench. He's the backup. Deuce Vaughn hasn't really worked out for them. Dowdle looks good, even though he was questionable going into Thanksgiving. And Dallas Cowboys offense. Wow. Again, who had this? Mike McCarthy, Brian Schottenheimer. We're going to make this the most potent offense in the league in the second half of the year. If you look at the schedule, it's not slowing down. And Seattle, problemos, you've got to play them on Thursday. So Rico Dowdle, and we're seeing him come through as a garbage time play even. So you might not even need Tony Pollard to get hurt for Dowdle to have value if the Cowboys can keep this up.
If they can keep it up. And looking over your list, Bloom, upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire report, there's a lot of running backs. So let's take another chunk out. Zach Moss, 15 to 30%. Tyjae Spears, I love him, 15 to 30%. Roschon Johnson. Boy, last night's game.
Yeah.
Last night's game, everybody. 15 to 30% for Roschon Johnson. Let's take care of those 3.
Yeah.
We got more.
We have more. And I mean, the reason this is going to be the biggest section of the waiver wire show, again, is because at this time of year, remember D. Brown, Syracuse Orange?
I got beaten a championship because of D. Brown.
Right? I mean, at this time of year, unlikely running backs matter in fantasy football. Well, here's some running backs that wouldn't be as unlikely. Remember, Zach Moss was one of the leading rushers in the league at one point, and Jonathan Taylor. And Moss got a little more work last week. This is a very winnable schedule going down the line for the Colts, who would be in the playoffs today. And Tyjae Spears, it's just a question of whether Derrick Henry goes down. Spears got a little banged up last week. Spears has a great ceiling as a receiver and a runner as far as explosive plays. You don't love Tennessee's offense, but it's clear he's the backup to Derrick Henry. We love the talent there. Roschon Johnson isn't the backup. Actually got more work than Khalil Herbert. Got a lot of passing game work. Now going into the bye, Dante Foreman could come back after the bye in week 14 and mess this whole thing up, right? I'll say this. I would rather have Roschon Johnson than Khalil Herbert on my roster right now. I'd probably rather have Roschon Johnson than Dante Foreman. I'm not carrying an injured player into the bye. Now, the right answer might be you don't want to have any Bears running back. You'd rather just carry injury upside backups unless you need a desperation play type. And Roschon Johnson would be the best of those. But there's always that chance. Remember back in week 2 or week 3, we thought, hey, Roschon Johnson is developing. They like him. He's got the best all-around skill set. He could take over this backfield. Welcome back, Roschon Johnson. Maybe he doesn't need an injury to have value. So Roschon Johnson, kind of like Samaje Perine, a lot of different paths to value. Maybe not the ceiling of the injury upside backups, but maybe more likely to help you in the fantasy playoffs.
On the Perine tip, when the season began, there was a question who was going to be the starter. I think when the season ends, we have a question of who's going to be the starter. Perine's just more effective. Like Javante's not
starter
himself.
Money.
Yeah,
$3.5 million a year means we see you as a very important part of our offense.
I'm not giving you a lassie bark.
Oh,
Samaje was mad that he did not get usage in Cincinnati. He chose to come to Denver for more usage and then didn't get used. Samaje, I'm guessing might have had an airing of the grievances, and the coaching staff listens because they do trust him. And that's why the Jillo McLaughlin thing, like, you didn't Chuck D him a week or 2 ago, then you're missing out. By the way, Joey writes in the chat room. Look at Joey.
Yeah, Joey.
Look at that happy face, man. Smiling faces. I love it. I love seeing the avatars, right?
Yeah, Joey's he's like the football guy's X factor.
I like it. I like it a lot. Blue Goose, longtime listener, first time watcher. Morning, folks.
Yeah, I saw D. Smitty said he could be here because usually our time conflicts with a meeting. So it's great. And see, don't worry about the Lassie barks because we're an hour early. Nobody from Broncos brass, they're not watching. They're waiting for the show. They're just waiting around.
George
They won't
Payton
hear
is
it.
looking on LinkedIn or whatever.
There's a Lassie bark.
Indeed, there is. We got more running backs. We're not done. We're not even close to being done with
No.
running backs. Jeff Wilson,
Yeah.
10 to 20%. Royce Freeman, Royce,
Right?
10
In
to
the year
20%.
2023, we're talking about Royce Freeman.
Yes, Philip Lindsay's on the air, and Royce Freeman's on your fantasy team. Tyler Algier, 10 to 20%. You do have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 0 to 1%.
Yeah, just
so
at
we
the
can talk about him.
in the
Throw it
very
in.
deep leagues. Well,
Yeah.
because Jerick McKinnon's hurt. There's a cue to Chuck D. Missed a game with a groin injury. So yeah, if Isaiah Pacheco goes down, Clyde Edwards-Helaire would be the starter for the Chiefs offense. So that's something. That's worth something in deeper leagues. But this is like our third tier of injury upside backups. Jeff Wilson is the injury upside backup right now. We're getting reassurances from Miami that, hey, Devin Achan's okay. So he should play this week against Washington. But that knee is bulky, and it might not take long for him to not be okay again. Or whatever they're saying about him, Jeff Wilson looked pretty good on Black Friday, and he would be the injury upside backup as of this moment. It's a fluid situation, but Miami's offense is so good, and Wilson showed last year that he can be productive in this offense, that maybe I should have him a little bit higher. But there's a lot of ifs here. Not a lot of ifs about Royce Freeman with Darrell Henderson now released. He's the backup. He ran well. Rams offense looking great. Kyron Williams already gone down once this year. So here we are, Royce Freeman. And then Tyler Algier also ran well last week. And even though Bijan Robinson has been installed as the starter, as the lead back is getting a workload worthy of a top 10 overall pick, Algier is on a team that's committed to the run. Bijan Robinson, every running back is an injury risk. And this is a team committed to the run. So I do think that Tyler Algier is worth a roster spot as a potential high upside backup in case of injury. It is that time of year. I guess, that's one of the things about fantasy football is sometimes you contemplate that you can benefit from others' misfortune.
Yes, that's what you're looking for. And what you're looking for is Chris Olave on the injury report.
Yeah.
As we get to the wide receiver section, we got to go to the Monday injury rounds. Adam Hutchinson, footballguys.com. Chris Olave, concussion, projecting week 14 return. So watch him go through that protocol, everyone. Rashid Shaheed, I'm talking about just Saints. Rashid Shaheed, thigh injury, projecting week 15 return. You have Michael Thomas banged up. That's why we're going to talk about A.T. Perry. Spoiler alert. Shrine Bowl bong rip. Sorry, Joe. We're going to get to him a little bit later. Let's get to your upgrades, downgrades, and waiver wire report. It's available at footballguys.com. Before we get to any sort of Saints, Jaden Reed.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Love's emergence, Jaden Reed's emergence, timed at the same time. And even Watson doing a little bit. When Watson scored, I was just like, oh, man. Okay, Christian Watson. There we go, everybody. But Jaden Reed, you see him kind of go hand in hand, right, Bloom? Him and Jordan Love.
Mm-hmm.
Doing it together. We're going to do it. Curtis Samuel, 15 to 30% out there getting it done for your fantasy team. And let's talk about Jalen Hyatt. He's close enough, 10 to 20%.
Yeah, not exactly the cavalry coming at wide receiver, but if Jaden Reed is still out there, he's contributed as a runner 3 of the last 4 weeks. He is a player that Jordan Love looks for in the middle of the field. He can make some big plays. Dontavian Wicks being out helped concentrate targets a little bit last week, also playing the Detroit defense, and Jordan Love playing well. Kansas City, again, a tougher matchup, but Jaden Reed, at the very least, is good injury backup, bye-week backup. And again, Buffalo, Baltimore, Vegas, 2 startable wide receivers there. Minnesota, Chicago on bye. Jaden Reed could help you out here. Curtis Samuel had bounced back 2 poor weeks, including getting thrown out around halftime. Last week, not a poor week. And you wonder if he's a struggle target for Sam Howell. If the going is tough, he might be the guy that is the high percentage target that he looks for, as opposed to, say, Terry McLaurin downfield. And when you look at these matchups, Miami bye, Rams, Jets, San Francisco, that sounds like struggle. And Curtis Samuel could be a player that helps you there. Jalen Hyatt, this is a pretty quiet breakout that he had, a 100-yard game with Tommy DeVito. And what you like here is they're using him as a downfield, high wire act receiver, and he's converting on those opportunities. And it's weird to pick up a player going into a bye when 6 teams are on bye. So if you need depth, Jalen Hyatt's not going to help you. And, we could see Jalen Hyatt go back to the waiver wire in a couple of weeks if this dries up. However, this also could be something that persists, and it's the deep passing game. And hey, if you're Tommy DeVito, why aren't you just winging it downfield? Why aren't you just giving this is maybe your one chance to be an NFL starter in your lifetime? So you have to like Hyatt's chances of sticking around.
Well, and it's a chance to continue to make money. You want to be the next Nick Mullins, right?
Yeah,
Floating around.
exactly.
You want to be the next Trevor Siemian. I've always wondered why Trevor plays football, because he's like really, really, really bright, like really smart. It's almost the Josh Dobbs thing. It's like, you're smart enough to know not to play football, right? You've got other options. But if you're Tommy DeVito, man, go sling it, baby. Like, you can stick around this league a long time. Chase Daniel, right? You can be that guy and go make a bunch of money. Eric asked in the chat room, because we haven't brought him up, A.T. Perry. Who's the bigger waiver wire priority? You've got Curtis Samuel over A.T. Perry. Let's talk about the situation, though, in New Orleans with everybody banged up, and let's round out your wide receivers. You got Greg Dortch there as well, 5 to 10%. Where's the Kyle Phillips talk or whatever? But I think the Saints conversation ties in here as well, because Alvin Kamara is going to get like 12 targets.
Exactly. So, and someone asked about Zay Jones in the chat room too. Zay Jones will probably be about the level of Dortch here. Zay Jones could have a good week any given week, although he's helping other players produce more than getting production himself. Certainly a fine depth pickup. On the Saints, you saw last week Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed go down, and A.T. Perry was outproduced by Keith Kirkwood. So that's not promising. I think that if we project the Saints offense this week, Saints defense also ailing. Cam Jordan got banged up. Marshall Lattimore's out. If we project that Saints offense, I think you're going to see, like you said, a lot of Kamara, Taysom Hill, Juwan Johnson. We're going to talk about him. I think that the wide receivers against Detroit probably aren't going to be that featured. Now, a wing and a prayer, a desperation play, Perry or Kirkwood could come through for you, but I don't think they are preferred waiver wire pickups, simply because last week in relief of Olave and Shaheed, they didn't do anything to help you.
You did some bartering, Bloom, for shrimp, right? Was that right?
Yes.
Shrimp and boat,
barbecue shrimp, smoked barbecue shrimp. Yes.
I want to do some bartering. By the way, we all need to get back to bartering. That's another That's another podcast, Bloom. But I want to barter was my man Z. I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name, Z. Sorry. I want to go to the Yucatan, right? Look at our guy. Worldwide, baby. We got the UK checking in. We got the Yucatan checking in. Shout out to everyone that's not in the lower 48. Shout out to everyone that is in the lower 48. Wide receivers, we done? We done?
Yeah. That's all she wrote.
Okay, let's go to tight ends. No injured tight ends? All right.
Wow.
Okay, we'll talk about it then. We'll talk about the tight ends that you need to pick up for your fantasy leagues. I know a lot of people interested in the tight end position, and sometimes we have a lot, sometimes we have a little, sometimes it's enough. Why is Pat Freiermuth on this list? Let's just before we get through anything, and I know you do 60% Yahoo, blah, 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 but like, to quote Sir Smoke-A-Lot, why? Why? Huh? Pat Freiermuth? Pat Freiermuth is available in leagues. What leagues are these? I want an investigation.
Well, Cease, he had 9 for 120. First time he's ever gone over 100 yards in his career. 9 for 120. Obviously, Eddie Faulkner, new Steelers offensive coordinator, identified something. They made him a featured passing game piece. He had in 5 games, and notice I said 5 games. He'd only played in 5 games earlier this year. So he missed about half the season. That's probably why he's out there. And if that's not why he's out there, he had 60 receiving yards in 5 games. So he doubled his output in 5 games in the first game without Matt Canada. So Matt Canada is probably part of this story too. So he's the priority waiver wire pickup. And look, this week it could be Deontay Johnson. This week it could be George Pickens. This week against Arizona, it could just be 40 carries for Warren and Harris. I mean, because they want Kenny Pickett to only throw the ball. I mean, that's the other thing is, Kenny Pickett is improving in this offense. So yeah, Pat Freiermuth is somebody that you have to pick up, even if you're flush at tight end, because if this persists, he could be a top 5 tight end down the stretch.
Down the stretch we come, talking about the tight end position, and there are others. Plenty of help this week. There's Isaiah Likely, and it's one game, Bloom, but we definitely saw who the preferred tight end is. And it's not to say that Charlie Kolar isn't incredibly talented as well, but it's Isaiah Likely, 20 to 40%. Get him in the end zone. Juwan Johnson, 15 to 30%. Cade Otton, 10 to 20%. Gerald Everett, 10 to 20%. Tyler Higbee, 10 to 20% as well.
Yeah, are more reinforcements coming. This has been the churn at tight end all year. And if there's a position that makes sense to stream, this is the position even more than quarterback, just because of the ups and downs we've seen. And also, hey, have you heard this story before? There's a whole bunch of tight ends that are very promising and look like they're going to have a breakout season. None of them. Darren Waller, Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert is hurt, right? If you didn't get Kelsey or Mark Andrews is hurt. Now another team needs a tight end in your fantasy league. Okay, George Kittle has been good and worth riding the ups and downs. There haven't really been a lot of consistent fantasy tight end. Dalton Kincaid has come on. Sam Laporte has come on. It's the rookies. So, yeah, the good news is there are some players that are going to help you at tight end, and probably we're going to see another round or two of turn. Isaiah Likely basically slotted right into Mark Andrews' role. And remember this, coming out of Coastal Carolina, Chanticleers, baby. Cecil, you know what a Chanticleer is?
No.
It's a rooster. A Banty rooster.
Oh man, roosters scare me.
Rooster. Really?
Wow. I was chased around. We didn't have chickens. We had pigs and cows and horses, tons of horses. But the chickens, when I'd go to like the Hahn farm, shout out Kevin Hahn. And the damn roosters that chase me around. Like they're mean. Roosters are mean.
They are. Up in City Park here in New Orleans, one time we took some feed to feed. We saw this one chicken in the woods, and we fed the chicken, and then like 5 other chickens came out of the woods. They just materialized. So I'm with you on the
magic chickens.
Magic chickens. But Isaiah Likely is going to say the morning is here for your cock-a-doodle-doo for your tight end position, because he got the 4 catches for 40 yards. He's going into his bye, but Baltimore actually has some games left, and schedule really matters at this point. Baltimore has some games left against Jacksonville, San Francisco, and Miami. That's their fantasy playoff schedule. I think they're going to have to open up the offense a little bit in those games. And by the way, Keaton Mitchell wasn't on the waiver wire report because he should be on a team. He would be a 25 to 50% or maybe even 50% higher guy. So Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers, you talk about the Vanguard C's. We thought, Todd Monken, new offense, new day. Speaking of morning in Baltimore, imagine if down the stretch, imagine if the playoffs, it's an offense powered by Keaton Mitchell, Isaiah Likely, and Zay Flowers. Yeah, a new day is here, and Isaiah Likely could be that guy for you. Remember back at Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers, he was drafted as an offensive weapon, more of a wide receiver / tight end than a true 2-way tight end. And it's his blocking that has really come around and got him onto the field. And now without Mark Andrews, they need his receiving. Juwan Johnson, remember way back when, before the season, Derek Carr gave him the Julian Edelman tape assignment. Watch Julian Edelman. So if the wide receivers aren't going to play a big role, because it's A.T. Perry and Keith Kirkwood, and probably in week 13, then Juwan Johnson sure could play a big role. Taysom Hill's not on the waiver wire list because he should be on a roster, but obviously Taysom Hill could play a big role here. Cade Otton, I think we're going something 4 or 5 out of the last 6 weeks. He's had at least 4 catches. And Mike Evans is going to be tied up with AJ Terrell this week. So coming up. So, maybe in week 14, Cade Otton, you're piecing, you're almost looking like stepping stones Maybe you're doing a tight end committee, K-Dot, and maybe not this week against the Jets, but next week against Tampa Bay. Gerald Everett scored. I don't think that Justin Herbert trusts anybody outside of Eckler and Allen except for Everett in this offense. Donald Parham fade in the background. So we're trying to just catch somebody at tight end that can do something for us with 6 teams on bye. Maybe against the Patriots, Everett is your guy. And then Tyler Higbee announced as inactive and scored 2 touchdowns against Cleveland this week. You could do worse than Tyler Higbee. So these are the reinforcements at tight end. These are the players that you're going to be adding. But we ask every week, Cease, how are we going to create room for these players on our roster?
How are you going to create room? Uncle Ted says Schoonmaker is a tight end to stash down the stretch.
Yeah, well, and certainly
Fergus, Hendershot, Schoonmaker.
Yeah.
Interchangeable.
How can we cue the Chuck D on one of them whenever they're all the same guy?
They're the same. They're the same, everybody. But yeah, definitely. And Uncle Ted brings up a great point. I want to go back to our Dearness Johnson conversation here as well, because we're right before the fantasy playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure when you're starting your league, but they should be starting here like now, basically. Yeah. So as we continue on, you need to grab the running backs now. You don't wait till the right before. You grab them now. You stash them now. Where the hell is the Dearness Johnson? It's Fantasy Fellowship.
He's not in there.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Fellowship.
Yeah. So if we go through, just look at guys that are talented that aren't getting the shot yet. Jamal Williams is talented and my friend. He's a guy that I'm stashing. Why? Because if he gets any sort of opportunity, not only is he a touchdown hog, he's a good receiver. He's a game plan protected, right? You fall behind, Jamal Williams can be in there. You're with the lead, Jamal Williams can be in there. Dearness Johnson. And if there was ever a Justin Forsett, right? What do we wait, like 7 years for Forsett to get a 1,000-yard season? And then he did, and he was done. But still, like, yes, Dearness Johnson, good offense, good player, just waiting. Bloom, that's the secret sauce. That's the magic combination. Now, you do get your D Browns, right? And I think D Brown, what do you only have, like 2 games? Happened to be in the fantasy playoffs, happened to be in the fantasy championship, and it happened to be a guy in my league. Shout out Mark Kilburn, Killer. What's up? He called into my radio show to ask me, and I told him to pick up D Brown, which he did, and then beat me with D Brown.
Right.
Should have been illegal. Anyway, stash those running backs, baby.
Yeah. Well, see, as a fantasy analyst, such a silly term.
Internet personality, Sigmund Bloom
personality,
says.
Fantasy expert. Probably the very best thing we can do is give someone advice that beats our team, because it just shows our integrity, right? We're here to help, first and foremost, others, not ourselves. And hey, fantasy football has been good to us, and fantasy football continues to be good to us. So I don't mind giving people advice, or, Cease, you talk about a waiver wire pickup, and then tomorrow I go and make my waiver wire claims in some of my leagues, and I get outbid for the player. That's good. That's respect. I appreciate that respect. It makes me feel wanted.
Well, that's all we want, is to be wanted. And then we want to throw some people away.
Yeah.
And that's what our next section is about. So no beating around the bush. Let's just get right into it, because there are players that you have to move on from, and this is the time for audience participation. If you're new, well, thank you. And if you enjoy the show, please do the YouTube things, like and comment, blah, 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 all those sorts of things. But the most important thing, more important than liking, more important than commenting, more important than sharing, or, doing all those things, more important than never missing a vid, never miss this section, and never not participate, even if it has to be in your head. In my head yet. Because we need this. All of us need this. It's almost scream therapy. Every single week you get to do it with us. We're going to go do it. It is time to say it with me. Everyone out there, let's cue the Chuck D. God bless America Blue. Week 13. Shut them down.
Shut them down. We have some things to talk about. At quarterback, do we cue the Chuck D on Joshua Dobbs? On the pro side, he's going into the bye, and the team is evaluating. I mean, see, how many times when we hear they're evaluating the position does the starter say the starter? Not many.
Hardly ever.
But Joshua Dobbs, who had a rushing touchdown in like 5 straight games or something like that across 2 teams, with Justin Jefferson, could be a key to your fantasy playoffs. So, I mean, when I say who's more likely to help your team, Joshua Dobbs or Elijah Mitchell, I'm okay with queuing the Chuck D on Joshua Dobbs. I wonder if we're going to talk about him again next week or the week after. Nick Mullins. Geno Smith has a tough schedule next couple of weeks. San Francisco is coming up, Dallas this week. So I don't know if he's going to help us. And I'd rather have Matthew Stafford or Russell Wilson or Jordan Love at this point, to be honest. At running back, again, as we talk about that you're stashing these running backs that you might want to drop. Miles Sanders back in a committee, no, actually now only getting about 1/3 of the work and looking like he doesn't deserve that. Khalil Herbert, again, it's arguable that you might not want to carry any Bears running back. Khalil Herbert certainly is maybe the 3rd least valuable going into their bye. And Jerick McKinnon, well, it doesn't look like that story is going to happen where they're going to rely on Jerick McKinnon again. He has to be healthy for that to happen. So even after all of their plans to keep him healthy down the stretch, he's still not healthy. You're probably going to let him go. Quentin Johnston. And it's never a good thing when your coach has to insist that you weren't benched because you were playing poorly. That was an injury. I'm not saying that Brandon Staley, dead man walking, is a liar, but I'm just saying that's not good for Quentin Johnston.
You don't have to ask that question anymore.
Yeah. Rashid Shaheed. I mean, leg injury, speed guy. Probably dropping him at this point for just about anybody, not Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Jackson Smith and Jigba, speaking of hyphenated names. Again, next 2 weeks, Dallas, San Francisco. Maybe Smith and Jigba's a garbage time play, but I would drop Smith and Jigba for, of course I would drop him for a Jaden Reed, probably for a Curtis Samuel, maybe even for a Jalen Hyatt, even though Jalen Hyatt is on by. T. Higgins, Jake Browning, T. Higgins is hurt. Jamar Chase needed a fluke deflected ball just to have some relevant value in week 12. So I'm not holding on to T. Higgins too tightly, as sad as that might be. Tight end, the churn at tight end, Jake Ferguson. Yeah, Jake Ferguson. I think that Jake Ferguson is probably a drop, maybe not for the likes of Tyler Higbee, but certainly if Freiermuth is out there, if Isaiah Likely's out there, even Jawan Johnson, I'm probably going to let Ferguson go. As, again, brought up in the chat room, Uncle Ted, Luke Schoonmaker, the rookie coming on, things continuing to be in motion in the NFL. Dalton Schultz. Brevin Jordan, everybody. Brevin Jordan played more snaps in the 4th quarter of the most important game of the year so far for the Texans than Dalton Schultz. So what does that mean for Dalton Schultz? He was extremely productive. He's attached to C.J. Stroud, but I don't even know what his role is going to be going forward. Logan Thomas has been and these are guys I think to drop for Freiermuth. I don't know if I drop them for Jawan Johnson. Logan Thomas, very consistent, a struggle target. Again, Washington, Sam Howell, a lot of struggle probably coming. Heck, maybe even Jacoby Brissett if it gets too bad. So I could easily see Logan Thomas putting up 8 for 43 kind of lines, just catching dump offs, passes over the middle from Sam Howell so he doesn't get killed behind that offensive line. I could also see him continuing to just give us 3 or 4 catches a week. So he's not essential, certainly not if Pat Freiermuth is out there. So, do you want to say something about the Houston tight ends?
They play Denver this week.
Oh, well, so maybe don't be too hasty. Maybe
Alex Singleton is missing tackles right now.
Yeah, right. He's doing his mental visualizations of the missed tackles for Sunday. So maybe Brevin Jordan, if you really are desperate, maybe this is a Brevin Jordan breakout week. And
Brevin Jordan can be David Njoku. They're both Hurricane tight ends, but like that talent's always been there.
What about Will Mallory?
The Will Mallory too. Love them all. Collect them all.
Who's your favorite ever Hurricanes tight end?
Shockey, right?
Yeah.
No,
well, down here, he's
Jimmy
a fish head too.
Yeah,
he's a fish head.
Yeah. They've had a lot, right?
Yeah, right. But if I need someone to call a game, it's going to be Greg Olsen.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. By the way, Reynard, look at this, man. His wife ran in to join in on Cue the Chuck D. You know you have a keeper. Right. Reynard never let her go.
Right.
She's the greatest ever.
Especially sees down here at this time of year. It's a couple of days after Thanksgiving. It's turkey gumbo time, right? And love of my life, Kate makes incredible turkey gumbo. Smoked turkey. You got to get a smoked turkey for it. I had to make room in the freezer. I was queuing the Chuck D. I'm queuing the Chuck D on these hamburger buns. I'm queuing the Chuck D on once. It's been there for 6 months, this chicken. Cue the Chuck D on this frozen cranberries we're never going to use. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes you look at those frozen buns.
The joke.
Sorry, Joe. I know. You can't let go of those buns, right? And so you gotta hold on. Joe hates this entire show. Hold on. Where's my thing? See, the bun talk got me off my game. Hold on. In week, what is it? 13. So 13. Bloom, who are some of you week 13? Hold on.
There's not a lot of hold on. There's not a lot of hold ons. See, you remember Grab Them Cakes?
What was that?
I think wasn't that Junkyard Dog song?
Oh, okay.
Grab them cakes, something like that. That's what you make me think of those frozen buns. Oh, I don't even know who we're holding on to. Joe Mixon, I guess, even though he barely did anything, I wouldn't be too hasty about him. I would probably hold Gus Bus through the bye, even though there's talk of Keaton Mitchell getting more comfortable in the offense. It's very possible that first week after the bye, so going into the fantasy playoffs, we would cue the Chuck D on Gus Edwards. He may only get 10 carries. And if you're relying strictly on goal line carries, especially in short bench leagues, like I would say this, if you're asking me, who should I carry into the bye between Keaton Mitchell and Gus Bus? It's probably Keaton Mitchell. Okay, who's the Ravens running back that you have to carry through the bye? Justice Hill even got more snaps, one more snap than Gus Bus in the win over the Chargers. Very disappointing fantasy outing. But before that, Gus Edwards was over the last month, was like a top 3 fantasy running back because of the touchdowns. And again, potential high scoring games against Miami, San Francisco during the last few weeks there in the fantasy playoffs. I probably am going to hold on to Gus Bus because we always need a bus to get us all to the party and the playoffs. I just wow, see, we're in the back 6 now. The last 6 games, fantasy playoffs. Probably some decisions again. We'll rue some decisions that we'll celebrate, and the decision we'll always celebrate is hanging out with you. Hanging out with our wonderful chat room here an hour early and helping encourage us, even though Joe's going to sit us down after the show and say, hey, buddies, the bun talk, we don't have that sponsor. So Hostess, honey buns.
I don't know. We were talking about some snacks, some Little Debbie's, right? We got, what's your favorite snack, Bloom?
I saw Little Debbie ice creams, little Debbie ice creams. My favorite snack, like of all snacks.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I've always been really okay. So I'm 48 years old now, and I really need to start thinking about my health. So I'm trying to, right now I'd want to say like a trail mix that I make. Like last night I made a nice trail mix with like some chocolate chips and dried cherries and almonds and pecans and some pistachios and cashews. But really, I've always been super partial to sour candy, like chewy sour candy. Sour Patch Kids being kind of the archetype there. I could probably rank every time I see a sour candy that I haven't tried, chewy sour candy, I'd have to try it and add it to the list. So I have like a power ranking. So this is added to the list of the shows we're going to do.
Upgrades and Waiver Wire report for sour candy.
For sour candies. And you know who else is with me on this is Eric Stoner. Eric Stoner, also a connoisseur. What's up, Eric? What's up, Bo Jackson? And we occasionally text each other tips like, oh man, I just tried these, and Cease, like snacks, like classic snacks with like the chili lemon and things like that, like the little sour belts and stuff like that. You have to know which convenience stores to go to find those. So a little south of the border flavor. It's a spicy sour candy, which that's exciting.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say it's a spicy meatball, because then I would have shown Vic Fangio. But if you have a Boba Fett avatar, watch everyone change their avatars to Boba Fett. We're going to answer your question, because Alec, with the coolest avatar ever on YouTube, says, should I try and trade Cortland Sutton for just Najee?
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
thin at running back.
Yeah, I think, Najee Harris is a real interesting play because there was all this talk about Jalen Warren. Faulkner's going to use Jalen Warren more. And not only did Najee Harris outplay Jalen Warren, he got to finish Jalen Warren's one good drive with a touchdown. So I think you're seeing a Steelers offense that's revived, more likely to score touchdowns than they were with Matt Canada, and Najee Harris, the most likely player to score those touchdowns.
Yeah, that's right. That is correct. Eric also asks about dropping Ferguson for Juwan. He has likely on his bench.
Yeah, I just think with Jake Ferguson, I wouldn't be shocked if Jake Ferguson scores a touchdown in any given game. But as Uncle Ted talked about in the chat room, I wouldn't be shocked if Luke Schoonmaker starts to move up in snap share and turn this into a tight end by committee. And I just think that Jake Ferguson has shown us that his upside is like 3 catches for 30, 4 for 40, and a touchdown. So I'm not afraid of dropping him. I'm not going to assume I'm going to regret that. Now, Juwan Johnson this week, especially if you need someone this week with Isaiah Likely on bye, you mentioned that Likely's on the bench. We'll certainly have Johnson, assuming he's okay. He did take a big hit. So let's watch the practice reports, but Johnson will be over Ferguson in my rankings this week.
Boba Fett makes me happy, but Boba Fett also made me sad last night. Do you know why, Bloom?
What happened?
I have a vintage 12-inch Boba Fett. This one really gets the ladies excited. I have a vintage 12-inch Boba Fett, and I noticed I went to the garage last night, and I was like a Star Wars shrine and a football shrine and a shrine to my kids, everything in the garage. Anyway, and I saw his hand was kind of bent a little bit. I was like, why is his wrist? And then I snapped his hand off. On a 1978. Thank God for Gorilla Glue. Shout out Gorilla. Where's our sponsorship from Gorilla Glue?
Right.
For the love of God, if I'm going to say your product's name, I want money.
Yeah.
Money me. Please money me. Anyway, so that made me sad. I was like, damn it. 70s toys that break when you touch them.
Well, they say don't cry over your broken 12-inch Boba Fett hand.
So many notes from Joe on this one.
That great Western adage that's been passed down for generations. Yeah.
Not all 70s toys are broken, buddy. Anyway, let's get it going and get out of here for today. He's Sigmund. Follow him at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show is at the Audible. We appreciate you all. Make sure before you're out of here, you want to support the show, go to footballguys.com, get a subscription, great price. And we appreciate you. No silly super chats. Just have a Boba Fett avatar and we'll put your comment up. Anyway, and then do the YouTube things like comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And we appreciate you. Be back at our regular time tomorrow with the preview for Week 13, Part 1. He's Sig. I'm Cease. We are the Audible. Stay tuned and stay frosty.